All right, how's everybody doing tonight? Yeah? This is a great reason to be here. I'm so proud to be here. I feel honored to be representing the Dandelion Foundation this evening. So let's just get right into it. We're going to start with some facts. Did you know a report of child abuse is made every 10 seconds in the United States alone? Did you know the United States also has one of the worst records among industrialized nations, losing on average between 4 to 7 children every single day to child abuse and neglect? Did you know among the over 300,000 children served by children's advocacy centers around the country in 2014, 2/3 of those children reported sexual abuse? So more than 200,000 of them. And 1/5 of those children reported physical abuse. Keep in mind, these statistics are based on reported incidents only. The real hard fact to swallow is that these statistics truly only represent a small portion of those suffering. The tip of the iceberg, if you will. Let me continue with some domestic violence statistics. Did you know on average 24 people per minute are victims of rape, physical violence, or stalking by an intimate partner in the United States? More than 12 million women and men over the course of a single year. Did you know a woman is beaten every 9 seconds in the United States? And 3 women are murdered every day by a current or former male partner. And that's just a taste of what we're facing. The facts of our current situation. And again, that's only reported cases. And that's only here in the United States. You know, when preparing for a presentation like this, it really isn't easy to know where to begin. There's just so much abuse in the world, and honestly, as I began to write, I became overwhelmed with the ceaseless stories of those afflicted. So I thought I'd take a different approach and look within. I thought I'd share my own personal experience with abuse. Well, I've been really struggling with that as well, because I'm literally in the midst of my own darkest hour as we speak. But not from abuse I'm facing today, but from abuse I faced when I was 6 years old. And I hope as I share my story of abuse with you, you will see how deep and wide the gap can be from being an abused victim to finding the healing you really need. And we need to close that gap. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm sharing my story. I should warn you now that if you have little children or you feel uneasy about hearing graphic details of abuse, please feel free to step out now. I'm very serious. I'm here to give a voice to the abused and to provide counsel to the abuser. As it is said, the details of abuse are never easy to deal with, but I'm here to unveil those details in order to bring attention to those moments of horror another precious human being experienced. It's important for us to understand, if we even can, a small portion of those experiences before we can ever move with united purpose against the many forms of abuse. And we're all precious human beings, and our lives should be honored, not tortured by the now commonplace abuses we see every day. One of the problems we face is we live in a society that tells the abused to toughen up. Don't let them see you bleed type of mentality. Well, again, I am not here to sugarcoat it for you. I'm not here to hide my inner wounds and scars for your comfort today. This subject should make you feel uncomfortable. What you're coming face to face with when you feel uncomfortable is the naked truth of the injustices caused by abuse. The next step is it should move us to action. But first, we must, at times such as this, take a moment to see the world through both the eyes of the abused and the eyes of the abuser, to gain perspective. And I just so happen to be both. I'm an abused abuser. And that cycle of the abused becoming abusers is all too common, and exactly what happened to me. You see, I didn't know I was an abuser. I knew I was abused, though only until recently I didn't know how badly. We'll get to that. But I didn't see myself as an abuser. I saw myself as a victim. I put so many walls up to protect myself from a past I had long forgotten and a tormentor I could not recall, that I was numb. Numb to my own pain and numb to the pain that I caused others. You see, when I was 6 years old, my mother and father separated and we moved to California. My father was abusive, and we witnessed screaming, cussing, broken furniture, and beatings. We were threatened, abused, and scared ourselves. He punched her, threw her against walls, pulled her hair, all in front of us. So eventually packed up and left. I didn't really know how to feel at 6. I remember asking my mom if it was okay to cry as we pulled out in our U-Haul because I wanted my mom to think I was sad because she was sad. But really, I was relieved. But my mother continued that abuse even after we left. Another abused abuser. Her pain became my pain, both physically and emotionally. I felt trapped as a child. Who could I talk to? Not my mother, not my father. I felt like I didn't matter. I've been kicked, punched, spanked, slapped, thrown downstairs. I've been hit with shoes, sticks, cooking utensils, books, belts, rope, jewelry chains, and much more. The cartilage in my right ear is shredded from her pulling my ear nearly off my head. I remember the searing pain and crying hysterically, but I had to stuff it down because she told me, "Shut up. I didn't hurt you, you liar. Shut up." It still cracks and pops, sometimes painfully, every single day. I was told I was going to grow up to be an abuser, just like my father. I was told that I was stupid and worthless. I was told that I was going to beat my wife. I was told that I hated women and would be a horrible father. I was even told, "I hate you." I knew even then from a young age that I was not the source of my mother's pain that caused her to lash out in inappropriate and abusive ways, but what could I do? I was only a child. I often even tried to figure out ways to make her feel special so I could heal her pain. But her pain was too deep and too wide, and I was too small and too weak to pull the stitches together to mend it on my own. And it was left unhealed for many more decades. She's found that healing now. She's a changed woman. She's a lovely woman. And she's more beautiful today than she has ever been because she was given a new heart. But at the time, all I wanted was for everyone to be happy again. But as I grew up, I became angry. Angry that my efforts to show genuine love as a child was met with repeated abuses against my body and soul. Words that planted the poisonous seeds of anger, self-doubt, and confusion in my heart, and actions that watered and fertilized their growth. I became cold and internal. It wasn't long before my actions became more and more abusive towards others. Well, fast forward. I found love. My Carly, the lady singing for you today. So I started writing a musical about that love. No, seriously, things felt like they were finally changing for me. I was so taken with her that I wanted to immortalize our love on stage. How unique and pure and perfect everything seemed. I'm guessing you can tell where I'm going with this. Things changed, majorly. Abusive pasts crept in, wanting to see what was going on, and they didn't like all the happiness that was being had while they were left unhealed and unattended to. So they began to act out, calling out for attention at first with a few abusive verbal lashes, but then the big painful triggers started getting pulled, one by one. Our past, our presents, and our futures were colliding whether we liked it or not, and we didn't like it, so we fought it. We fought the truth more than we fought each other, really. We were both broken and didn't want to admit it. But then something bigger happened. The abuse jumped up a notch, and it became physical just after we got married 3 years ago. One night we were out singing and drinking, and when we got home, an argument sparked an inferno of emotions. One thing led to another, and her anger propelled her forward to meet me face to face in my arrogant stance. And as she jumped up and walked toward me, I reacted with violence and I shoved her to the ground. I've never lived with more regret over anything I've ever done. That was the day I really knew I needed help. I'm still sorry for the way that I violated you that day. It's been 3 years and the work to rebuild is not yet complete, but it's been worth every effort because you are worth my every effort. So, as we've changed, the musical changed. That's right, I wasn't going to give up on it either. So I rewrote the script to make it more real and included the abuses we faced together in our relationship. But even though the musical was going well, real life had its struggles. I was dealing with guilt and couldn't seem to get out of the abusive cycle, and she was trying to learn how to trust again while dealing with her own pain that she no longer felt safe to express. And all of this was coming to a head when the inevitable happened. Things got worse, way worse, when memories that were once sealed within my mind became unsealed. Here's what I wrote to Facebook after the revelation I had. I've always chased after this one demon in my life, or rather, it's always chased after me. I mean, I knew there was something I was hiding even from myself, you know? I used to be scared of it when I was a young boy, and I had terrible, vivid nightmares about it. In my dreams, I ran in absolute terror. I mean, wake-up screaming kind of fear that carried on through my teenage years and well into my adult life. Well, as time went on and the further I ran away from the source of that fear, the dreams changed from one terrifying thing after the next, and eventually they didn't affect me anymore, and I grew out of it, only after I had married Carly 3 years ago. But why did I run? I mean, even as a child, what instilled that true sense of fear that plagued me for so long? You know what I mean? I always thought there must be a root cause that explains it. But I have looked back and pored over my memories time and time again to understand this fear, and I just couldn't figure it out. Now I have had this horrible, vivid dream, one that has literally made me relive my past suffering as a child, and I remember everything. I could take you to the place my innocence died. I'm really confused and enlightened all in one breath. I guess that's exactly what to expect when you've been trying to understand something for so long, and the truth just proves that it can't be understood. But at least I know. At least I know. Now I don't have to fear. Right after posting that, I had a complete mental breakdown, and I wound up in the hospital just moments later. So what happened? Well, it all started with good intentions. Let's rewind now, back to when my parents separated and we moved to California. My mother had a good idea to help me transition from being fatherless. She thought a male mentor would be really good for me, and there just so happened to be a young man in our new apartment complex who fit the bill for a reliable, stable, honest companion that could really help me grow into a stable young man myself. You know, teach me the man stuff about life and take me on adventures to keep my mind off everything I was going through. And it was great. He was great. But it didn't last long. One day he took me out to get ice cream, and on our way back into the apartment complex, we always turned right to go back to my house. But he stopped and said, "Come with me for a minute." And he turned left and started to head towards the community laundry room. Took me in the laundry room and asked me to turn around. And he started to give me a hug from behind. He started to put his hands up my shirt and up my back and around to my chest. He started to lick and bite my ears. And things progressed. But the same things that he would do to me, he made me do to him. He would bite my ears, and he would make me suck and bite his ears. He would stick his tongue out and make me suck on his tongue, and he would suck on my tongue. He would suck on my testicles and my penis, and lick my anus. He made me do all those things to him as well. He'd encourage me and tell me I'm doing a good job. And I'd ask, "You like that, baby?" And I'd have to respond enthusiastically or he'd punish me. And he was very angry and violent if I wasn't satisfying him correctly. The more pain that he caused me, the better it made him feel sexually. I remember the first time that he attempted anal, and I began to scream, and I was screaming, and I was screaming, and he grabbed me, and he turned me around. I could feel his erection in my back as he pulled me into him, and he pinched my nose with his fingers and covered my mouth with the rest of his hand. And he put his hand around my throat and he pulled me into his chest. And I remember I felt my soul screaming. I felt pain and more pain, then extreme pain as my body began to shake violently until I was gone. Nothing, there's blackness. And then I felt warm, like God was hugging me. And I stayed there for a time. I don't know how long, but then the warmth started to fade. And I felt a pain in my chest. I felt air filling my lungs. And then I felt as if I was waking up from a place of peace to my own private hell, as I began to gain awareness and felt his disgusting wet lips wrapped around my mouth again. I pushed back and gasped for air, panicked, frightened, and alone. He fell back and I realized that I was laying on the floor. I remember him saying, "Oh, thank God." And I remember thinking how odd it was for him to be thanking God. But then I began to weep uncontrollably. He pulled me up into his arms and hugged me tightly to his chest. And I remember feeling comforted by him, feeling thankful to him. You see, the only difference between me and Kaylin is that my abuser was able to revive me and got away with it. My mom could be sitting right here. She could be supporting this because she lost a child. After that, I just stopped fighting it. I didn't feel like I had a reason to fight anymore. I learned how to open my throat to allow his... You get it? I learned how to do things that no 6-year-old should have to learn how to do to avoid pain. That's when I started having night terrors, sleepwalking, and fits of rage. My mom took me to counseling. She thought it was issues with her or with my father, both of which were valid and most definitely issues, but neither of them were even on my radar anymore. I moved myself into the darkest corner of my mind, and there I hid, alone with my sufferings. The last time I saw him, we were walking on the street, and he happened to be graduating, I believe from college. And my mom wanted to walk over and see if he was there and say hi. And I said, no, you know, it's fine, you know, it's probably over. Anything to not go over there. We walked over there, and he just so happened to walk out the door as soon as we got there. And he came over and he gave me a hug. And I just remember shivering. And just feeling so disgusted and thinking, if only my mom knew. Well, we moved away, and my nightmares changed as I continued to be abused by my mother, as I said earlier, and I bottled away those years spent in California. I forgot all about it. Literally, my 6-year-old self hid away in the dark recesses of my mind and locked the door behind him. That is until just 4 months ago. Nearly 25 years later, boom, the door just unlocked. And I see the body of my 6-year-old self fall faint onto the canvas of my mind, exhausted from holding back this pain from himself, from myself. Horrific memories and emotions that never healed begin to quickly follow suit and pour out uncontrollably. A living nightmare exploded in my mind. My body remembers every painful moment. I still feel him. And as more memories come back, I feel him again and again. And I just want it to stop. Just like I wanted it to stop when I was a child. I wanted to die. I felt worthless. I was told I was worthless. And over the last few months, I've been feeling like dying again. It may not seem fair, but that's where I'm at. I'm in counseling. I'm taking medications. But I'm broken and I'm suffering. So how deep and how wide is that gap between being abused and finding healing? Well, I'm 31 years old. And my 25-year-old wounds are as fresh as the day they happened. I didn't get help. I didn't even know I needed help. No one knew. So how can we fight against what at times remains invisible for a quarter century or even more? The key is to become compassionate, loving individuals who are ready and able to adequately support the abused, while at the same time living and teaching others how to live compassionate, loving lives. Many times the answer to abuse starts to develop in the wake of trauma, but we can end the cycle by taking a stand, by not being silent. So what about Carly and I? Well, we're doing as well as we can be right now. The musical has already been rewritten to include my childhood rape and murder in a very tasteful way. And as much as it has had to evolve over the years of writing it, we have had to evolve the same. You see, our musical has become our outlet for healing. It was begun as a declaration of love. It has endured through abusive trials and has been adapted by tormented pasts. It's all real and it's all us. We hope to stage it soon so we can continue to heal and so we can reach others who need healing. We need to let the abused know that they're not alone. Amen. Now before I close, I'm going to have Carly come sing us a song of encouragement, and then I'll just say a few final words after she sings before we continue with the rest of our celebration. Carly?
Why should I feel discouraged? Why should the shadows come? Tell me why should my heart feel lonely and long for heaven and home? When Jesus is my portion, a constant friend is He. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. I sing because I'm happy, and I sing because I'm free. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches. I know He watches. I know He watches me.
Beautiful, thank you. I love you. Just a quick announcement, the silent auction will be ending in about 15 minutes or so after I close, and as the band prepares their final set. So you'll have an opportunity to get in there and crank up those bids. But first, I'd like to end with a short spoken word I wrote for you all yesterday. And I'd like you all to stand with me as I speak, please. This day, this hour, this very moment at hand, this time in our history has never been clearer. It is time for us to stand. Our suffering has produced an endurance soul, a weapon forged of pain no other could truly know. While the light inside of us says, you've still got more power than you realize, a steady character develops as we begin to walk in the weakness that once left us paralyzed. Tragedy born and raised in tribulation, our character is seated in hope, our salvation, the day ahead, the day beyond, the day some distant future brings the dawn. There shines a new day far beyond the sufferings that seemed so long drawn. So stand united, stand without shame, stand with those tortured that go without name. It is our voices that must be heard. It is our actions that must be seen. And it starts together. It starts when we decide to change the dream. Living in a nightmare and surrounded by darkness, we've forgotten that the light inside of us is enough to start the process. Systematically transforming our thoughts, our desires, and our speech, we take to the streets, the tormented within reach. It's our time to preach. We've had enough. We've had enough. We've had enough. Have you had enough? My name is Nahshon Rhaburn. Thank you for your time.